politics, and pop culture.
What's up, bro? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to the episode of the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited to be in conversation with my next guest. But before I begin, you guys always know, depending upon what time I do my interviews, the light always hits me crazy. And it's completely washing me out right now with the sunroof I have. So I look transparent. But I think by the time I wrap up with my next guest, the sun would have passed and I'll look normal. With that being said, man, I was excited. This individual I've been a huge fan of for a very long time, man. One of my favorite MCs that is out there. Doesn't need much of introduction. Just goes by just two names, Too Short. What's going on, Too Short?
What's happening, man? Just, doing what I do.
Absolutely, man. I am excited to be in conversation with you. I am from Lansing, Michigan. And I felt like when I was coming up, Michigan didn't have much of a hip hop scene at the time. And I believe that we were free agents, right? We could either go West Coast or go East Coast. Right. And so my introduction really to hip hop was through the West Coast. And so I've been a fan of West Coast hip hop since I was in love. When I first fell in love with hip hop, it was through the West Coast. And so I have been listening to you for so long, man. And it is a true honor to be here because you have defined, for me, a sound. You have really defined a culture. And I think when the person can think of a city and then they think of a rapper, I think that lets you know the mark that you left on society. And I'm talking about the city of Oakland, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so just thank you for being such a treasure, man, to our culture.
Well, Michigan definitely was on board with Too Short early on. Definitely Detroit and Chicago jumped on early. It's when my music first started leaving the state of California and out of the Bay Area. Houston was one of the first places I went to. Chicago was next. Detroit was right after that.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what do you think that is? I've been trying to rationalize it for a while. And I think that's been a large pattern because, interesting enough, I've noticed that it's almost like migration patterns. Like I went out West Coast first, and then I came down and fell in love with Southern music or, rap from the South. And then I finally started loving East Coast hip hop, right? But I literally had to go from the West to the South to the East. I mean, do you know why that is? Have you talked to folks from Midwest and asked them why they? If I have my hypothesis, I'm curious to see from you.
I personally had a cheat code that the majority of artists have their influences that they fall back on that make them make the kind of music that they make. But me, I had a music background in music classes as just in the elementary school band. And then I marched in the high school band for like a year and a half or something. That embedded something in me, just the actual routine, the singling out each instrument, knowing what each person in the band is supposed to be playing, knowing when somebody hits the wrong note and they get singled out by the teacher, and you start, you get into the stuff. Then when you do the steps, you got to do your right steps and play at the same time and look the part. So that instilled something in me. And then also my upbringing I remember probably being in about the 4th grade and literally being given a Parliament Funkadelic album to listen to and just listen to this. And, influenced by my older brother because he's 3 years older than me and he's really wants to hear this album. So I really want to hear it. And I'm just like, some things in your life you never forget. I never forget the day I first heard Parliament Funkadelic was allowed to listen to an entire album. And at the same time, there's this, this wild ass cartoon book that comes with it, this comic book inside the album, and you're hearing the songs and it's telling you a story, and just those instruments and that funk. I was really into like Ohio Players, and they're like funk, just as funky, but it's a little jazzier. And I really got into just the funk songs of the 70s. So when hip hop came along, I had all these instruments I could hear. And I personally had spent a lot of time in New Orleans, where my mother's from, which at the same time, I'm taking in music the way it's coming to me, the funk, yeah. the school band. New Orleans is a lot of live instruments, but it's totally different. My first cousins are also in marching bands, but they playing a little bit different. They stepping a little different. And I'm like, I'm amazed at what they're doing. Because our band is not letting us dance and do stuff like that and play the songs on the radio. And I'm like, man, this is just incredible. So to be able to go to Mardi Gras and to see Second Lines and and to take in that whole gumbo jazz New Orleans thing. And when I came into making music myself, I was accidentally making songs that they love in New Orleans. And I was just doing it was the beat that I was hearing. It was like, if you go back and listen to a song like I Ain't Tripping, which is on my Life Is Too Short album, that song, they liked it so much in New Orleans. After a while, they just stopped playing the vocal version. They used to just play the instrumental. And I knew what it was that made them like it, but I'm just saying my cheat code was the Parliament Funkadelic, the elementary school band, and actually adding that little bit of New Orleans bounce and always knowing what they liked in that area. I knew what they liked.
I knew I liked You Too Short. You and I are different, but very similar. So I grew up in a marching band. I was like a band geek in high school. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. I was even the drum major in my marching band. And my band sounds similar to yours, where we weren't allowed at the time to really play songs on the radio. And I was our school's first Black male drum major. And so I kind of added different kind of elements, along with my band teacher, obviously, that made us more, cool and fun and funk. But what you're saying too as well about New Orleans also too, that second line dancing, it's that drumming, right? It's the beat, it's the rhythm, right? And the funk and the bounce that they have is that drum line, which is why I love that movie, Drumline. To this day, it's one of my favorite movies, because of everything that we're talking about right now, and just to display that. What's interesting too, when you mention that, when you think about like the Midwest, right? You think about our dancing is different. We're much about like line dances and hustles, and Chicago has a Chicago step in the house and the ballroom dancing that they do. We did that too in Detroit area. And so that's why I probably related so much to you. I was also too thinking too short about the lyrics. I think that the West Coast has had a very easy way of living, right? And like, what I mean by just slower pace, it's like the Midwest, where New York, I couldn't relate to nothing they were talking about. Like none of it made sense to me, because I couldn't relate, because I'm from Lansing, Michigan. So everything they're rapping about, I'm like, what is that? I never heard of that type of stuff. So do you think it had to do with like our cultural differences? I mean, similarities, you think?
A New York hip hop fan has at the time, 90s, late 80s, early 90s, a New York hip hop fan is wearing a pair of headphones, is on a train. It's a lot of people around you that the sight of them, the smell of them is irritating the fuck out of you. If somebody speaks to you, it's just oh hi, that's fucking disrespectful. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then you get out you get off the train and it's just people. It's a lot of people, and you like, you pushing for your space, and it might be cold outside, whatever the fuck it may be, but you like in an attitude like, don't fuck with me. And the music that the Wu-Tang Clan made, or you can name so many groups, reflected that shit. It's like, I need to hear that right now in my headphones. So I can fucking zone these people out, and I fucking karate kick the fuck out of somebody to fuck with me. And it's a little bit different where I'm from. Where I'm from, it was like, a cat would take like an old car and buy that motherfucker for $600 and just start putting money into it. Put a little sound system in it, put some rims on it and some speakers in it, and they ain't even got it painted yet. And it's riding around. I'm gonna get my shit painted about 3-4 months. Then you paint it up and you start bringing it to life. And you like, next thing you know, your shit is a nightclub on wheels. And, and that's how you feel. You don't want to fucking hear some angry ass shit. You want to hear Too Short saying, I'm a motherfucking player, bitch. And then you like, now I can pull up to the fucking red light, roll my windows down, and everybody knows how I'm feeling today. And that's just, I think it's very, very regional what music we make,
Because that's just how it was. Like for us, we always say, obviously we're the car capital of the world, like in the Midwest area, the manufacturing belt. And so it was nothing for us to have a car for like $100 or $200. Like, I think when you go to other cities, and it's all about like cars can be a status symbol. But for us, it wasn't, right? And our whole phrase was, I just want a car to get me from point A to point B.
In Detroit and are all over the state of Michigan, I think that at any point in time in hip hop, I've met these rappers from around the state of Michigan, Kalamazoo, Flint, different places, and they really rap really, really, really good. They rap fast, they rap slow, they rap East Coast, they got West Coast vibe. They took it all in and perfected it. And I always attributed that to who came before you. And what came before in Michigan is fucking Motown. So it's like everybody I talk to is like, yeah, my auntie used to sing backup for so-and-so. Or my uncle was in such and such group, Or my cousin used to play a instrument for such and such group. Everybody's connected to the music and the cars. Everybody.
Yeah, you literally in a church. Your such used to be the drummer for such and such church, or back then used to be such and such for like this church group that would travel that became so popular, right? Like that's exactly what it was.
I've always appreciated the Midwest contributions to music in general because I know how much of the Midwest is the funk, the real funk. Like George Clinton is not from the Midwest, but he came to the Midwest and found that funk. He wanted to be a rock star, and then he wanted to be like James Brown. It's like, where's that funk?
But even to what you're saying, it's like, it kind of goes back to that book, The Warmth of Many Suns, how Black people, we have our own migration patterns and stories, right? So a lot of us, obviously we came from the South and from the Delta, Mississippi, was the birthplace of blues, which birthed so much genres of music at the same time. But too short, I actually, like later in life, I actually realized my sister Shamel, her family used to always cook red beans and rice out in Los Angeles. And I never understood like why they have this red beans and rice. I'm like, y'all ain't Creole, right? So it's this funny kind of story that we had. But a lot of people would move from like the South and New Orleans that you're talking about. And not only did they go north, but they actually went west, right? To LA and to Oakland.
I grew up in California on red beans and rice.
See?
Every other day.
Yeah, see, it threw me off. Like I didn't know they you guys did that until I got much older and I started to understand the migration patterns. I was like, that's why I think I connect so much to like West Coast rap and Too Short is because of all these different dynamics.
You have people in California, especially in Oakland, who have really thick Southern accents who were born in California.
It's wild. It's just things you don't even think about when you're out there. Ladies and gentlemen, I must set the table. I got so excited to talk to Too Short. I forgot to tell you guys like why he's actually here. Too Short. My bad, sir. Too Short not only was really cool. Like Too Short not only one of my favorite rappers, one of the first rappers I got introduced to, but now I had the pleasure of calling Too Short a colleague. Isn't that crazy? I get a chance to call Too Short a colleague, as he is now about to have his own show right here on SiriusXM on Rock the Bell Radio. It's going to be a weekly show beginning at 2 p.m. I don't know, Eastern Standard Time or Pacific as well, but 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The name of the show is Don't Stop Rapping, hosted by Too Short. And ladies and gentlemen, you can already tell that this show is going to be so good because the way this brother tells a story is amazing, right? Like it's cool to short. I never, it's kind of weird. So don't take this the wrong way, but I never really heard you in long form conversations, right? Like I know you do this great job on Instagram with the Too Short stories, right? But like I'm just so used to checking you for raps and songs and Blow the Whistle, which I play pretty much twice a week.
You gotta be matter of fact, man. This is not by accident. This is not something that I was sitting around the room going, bitch, and listening to it in echo chamber. No, this was thought out and very intelligently in every step of the way. So
you're an incredible storyteller, man. Like, and I think, but see, here's the other thing too. Just me and a buddy of mine, Kat, we were talking about. I think there's certain pockets of like schools that teach hip hop as like English, like for English lessons and courses in class on a collegiate level. But I think that hip hop should be studied like K through 12 in our English curriculum because the way you guys are such storytellers and the way that you guys use like the English language, man, is so powerful and dynamic from metaphors to allegories to alliterations. And the way you tell a story is like, it's so dope. Like it was like I almost think that MCs are almost natural born media personalities, right? Just because of how you guys phrase and connect. Do you think that as well? Like as you guys,
I'm a student of hip hop, and I think that if you had to put me on a tree and say, who am I a branch of? I would say definitely Melly Mel. And the song, The Message, I was rapping before the message came out, but after the message came out, I rapped with a whole different purpose because the message told, close your eyes, listen to the message, and you see something. You see New York City, you see this guy's, what pushed him to the edge, you see it. And it gave me an idea that I never would have thought of had I not heard the message. And I was like, oh shit, I'm about to tell you the story of Oakland. And Too Short is the story of Oakland. I took a city, I stare at the city, I listen to the city, I look at the city, I move around the city, and I get nothing but songs from the city. So, I mean, I just think that that part of having a purpose, you know what I'm saying? Just having a reason to you gotta get. So I'm just telling an Oakland story. It's so easy for me. I can tell. If I lived in Detroit, I could tell you Detroit stories for a lifetime.
I can imagine. Well, let's go there because like you said, you're very intentional, right? And so I'm curious. I wasn't going to ask you this, but now that you brought it into the conversation, I'm curious about your use of the word bitch. It's so signature for you, right? And it came at a time that probably wasn't the most, politically correct terminology. Now the word bitch is so normalized in culture, right? And we use it so much. Intentionality. You even have a song, Ain't Nothing But a Word. Talk to me about, your intentionality then with the use of the word bitch and how you say it, right? It's such a signature sound for you.
So as a kid, I was extremely infatuated with the blaxploitation movies, and the pimp character really came across to me as not like, here's a guy who makes women sell their bodies, but I was looking at it like what he's wearing is the flyest shit, and what he's saying is the flyest shit, and he got all the flyest women, and look at his car, and I'm just like, I like that image. So when I got out in the streets of Oakland, I saw that image very up close and impersonal. I met it. I looked at it like it wasn't on screen anymore, and I'm like, wow, that's it. And I became infatuated with what that meant. So if you hang around pimps or that culture, the word bitch flows in a conversation with such, it's like music, it's like poetry. It's not necessarily disrespectful when you have pet named someone bitch, and it just flows in the conversation. Bitch, give me a glass of water. And it's fly as fuck. I thought for hip hop and for Too Short to take on that persona, and you hear me in my songs, because I like to I like to write my songs to one person. So if I'm talking to you and I'm telling you this story in a song, throughout the song, I'm probably going to say, and man, you know what? Something. I keep doing these little things like saying, yo, man, check this out, to make it you. I'm not making it them. Yeah. I'm making it just you. So it makes you feel like this dude's talking to me. I know this dude is my homie. I feel you. I hear you. I'm really doing that on purpose. And I also do it with the bitch word. So in the song, I'm like telling the story, and I'm like, bitch, I say something, and it runs by so fast that you might not have thought about the thought process of me putting that in there that way, but I know what it's doing. I know that if I said, and bitch, I'm something, now I just called her a bitch, but it's 5 other women in the room, and what they say is, he called her a bitch, not me. And I'm doing this on purpose. I very rarely say, all you bitches, something like that. I very rarely like throw the whole lot of women in the word bitch. And I've often referred to all bitches are not women. And I've run that various ways, because a lot of men are bitches and a lot of women are tough as fuck and far from that. And I say that all women are not bitches. So all bitches ain't women and all women ain't bitches. That gets me out of the red when the sister corners me and goes, oh, so that's how you getting down? So I've been cornered a lot by executives, female lawyers, like women of all kind of, religions, and cornered me and was like, I want to be mad at you right now. And we have a conversation, and they walk away going, I don't like the use of the word, but I hear what you're saying, brother. I hear you. And a lot of it has to do with the comedic tone that I say it in, that I make you laugh when I say it. So even at the same moment you want to be offended, you fucking laughing. And you know, I was even talking about like Ronald Reagan's wife sucked my dick when he was the president. Like I can imagine saying Donald Trump's wife sucked my dick. He'd probably go on Twitter and blast me and go to war with me or some shit. But it was comedy, man. I think my albums were, a lot of my songs were not too far from a comedy album of the 60s or 70s or some shit. A Rudy Ray Moore. It was that. I was doing the pimp player, hip hop, gangster, funky beats, but it was still funny as fuck, a lot of that shit. And I was doing it on purpose. So I think that the bitch word, I very much desensitized it in pop culture. I can say that. I'm sure that I'm a very large contributor in the fact that women say to each other, bitch, what you finna do today? Or just be like, this is my bitch right here. You know what I'm saying? And they flow it way more than any man can flow it at them. And I don't think that they're like, I'm calling you a bitch because I'm disrespecting you. I think it's because it creeped into pop culture and it no longer means what it meant. And you can still say it in that very derogatory tone. You can still say it very disrespectfully, but there's so many other ways to say it now.
You don't understand how upset I am with myself right now, because this is going to me, this is just personally speaking, is one of my favorite interviews I think I've done in my career. And I'm mad I'm being whitewashed out with my sunlight up top, because I want to come back and look at this video just for myself consistently, because for me, an audience, you know this, I'm enjoying the interview. Too Short, my audience knows I never write any questions down. Like, I didn't even know I was going to talk to you about. I just like to start, right? And then I let the energy go and the vibe kind of go from there. And I had no idea that we would uncover and unpack so much of what we're doing right now, and why it is I now know why I relate to you so well. Paul Mooney just passed away. May he rest in peace. My audience knows I am a huge fan. I talk about this often. Next to directors of films, my next favorite genre of guests to have are comedians, and in particular comedians that are satirical. Because I do a lot of political conversations, social discourse, I'm always filling out social constructs. Comedians who are satirical do it the best. They're able to take a very difficult topic, desensitize it into a way that makes people laugh, even if they laugh uncomfortably. But at that point, it gets people to think. And so for you, I guess subliminally, I was drawn to your music because of the satirical leanings of your style of flow, rap, and lyrics, not knowing that you were getting the inspiration for the word bitch from Black exploitation films, right? Which is coming and having almost, I wouldn't say a resurgence, but it is creeping back up against mainstream creative narratives that we're seeing. And so for all that, for you to be so intentional with that, I mean, that's kind of been our theme so far in this conversation, is intentionality. I mean, because you talk about Nancy Reagan, and back in the 80s, she was leading the censorship movement, right? She was the one who was putting the parental advisories, on there, and they don't do drugs, and some of these things that became very detrimental to our community and to our society. And so for you to speak about that with such intentionality and have such messaging, I think a lot of people, that got lost on a lot of people, right? Like including myself, but not knowing I was being drawn towards you because I'm a fan of satire. I'm a fan of double entendres, right? And make people think differently. And you really remixing and using that word. And that's why I said earlier, the word bitch is so normalized. You're right or wrong. I'm not here to debate the morality clause of that. But it is such a very normal part of, our language that we have today.
Pop culture.
That's it.
It's not Black. It's not. I can take you to the whitest room right now, and it's the same thing over there.
It is. So let me ask you a question that, like, I didn't expect to go here, but since we're here, as you learn a lot about like MCs like Nas, like he loved to read books, all kind of books. Tupac was just this Renaissance kind of guy altogether. I know it's in cars, but I'm also too noting like films. Like, what other else is like your muse? Like, what do you like draw upon as you're beginning like to create like your music?
Well, after I got out of high school, I only have one regret in life, one major regret, and that was my dream was to march in the marching band at a HBCU and do the shit my cousins were doing and kind of like live that life. And Drumline, the movie, kind of sort of, and hip hop kind of diverted me. The things that I was doing in high school, trying to hang out with the bad crowds and stuff, that got me kicked out of the band class, and I just lost a passion. But what was the question? What was the question? Bring me back.
I was saying, yeah, it's okay. Your muse, like, what did you draw upon for inspiration for your work, that you do?
So I think that because I didn't get to do that one thing in college, I had to like take all of the things that I missed and apply them, live them out through hip hop and stuff. And I don't know. I was going to tell you something. I got kind of lost my little train of thought there a little bit.
Oh, good.
I was trying to go into something very specific, but I just think that out of all the things I ever did in life, like that was the one. I wish I could go back and get to you what I really want to get to. But
that's all good.
But my missing out on the intellectual stuff. Oh, I know where I was going with this. It was about the books and stuff. So missing out on that intellectual stimulation of what college would have did for me that I needed, and I just got fast tracking the hip hop and making money at those same years in my life. I learned through my life's experiences. I think I went to a few things happened to me in my 20s. I went to I think his name was Steve Coakley's seminar, and he was talking about symbolism around everywhere. And he was just pointing, it was like a 2-3 session seminar. And it was just show a lot of slides and a lot of just showing you stuff from all over the world with these corporations and just symbols and their logos. And it just intrigued me. And then I had been invited to a meeting with Minister Farrakhan after Biggie and Tupac had got murdered. He brought a bunch of rappers and told us some stuff. And I made friends with like some of his guys who were his security guys and, some of the like higher ups in the organization. And I didn't want to join the Nation of Islam, but I was really like, it just really got me the knowledge that each of them had. And I started asking them about books. And they started turning me on to like, some of those conspiracy books, some of the, history books. Of course, I read Malcolm X's book, his autobiography, but it led me down this path to like studying history. And I found this one book that really set me off. It was called Lies My Teacher Told Me. And it was just a book that outlined the United States history books that are given out in school. And it just went through all the little shit in the book and just told you how all this shit is lies. And I started wanting to find out things on my own. So probably going on like 25, 30 years now, I just been like studying history. Like people would never know that. I just try to find stories that aren't necessarily his story, but more like your story, and just kind of find out as much as I can that's not his story. And it's amazing. Like it's a lifelong journey. It never ends. And no matter if you watch a documentary or you go YouTube diving or whatever it may be, it's a bunch of bullshit out there. But if you keep doing it, there's a story. I don't give a fuck if it's fucking ancient aliens or fucking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm into what happened, so I can figure out what I want to do with it and where I want to go. So it's just a hobby of mine. So that to me feeds a lot of what I think I missed. I've been self-educating. I missed college, so I've been self-educating my whole life.
Brother, let me tell you too short. I swear to God, this has become an instant classic show of the Mike Muse Show before we even finish this episode. Like I'm going to have this, and like when I'm on vacation one day, this is going to replay, and re-air. I mean, I have. When I tell you, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I know it's good when I forget that I'm the host and asking questions and moderating, and I literally feel like I just want to be a friend, right? Like, and I'm very mindful of like not trying to be friends with my guests, right? But literally too short. I'm like, yo, I feel like this is my homie, like a real homie, man.
A lot of recording artists that Like, let's take a Kendrick Lamar, Ice Cube, these guys, you just, if you get inside and get a conversation, you see how the mind works, and you're like, I thought this guy made genius music. And then you start realizing there is some genius in there. And it's like a lot of these guys, man, they are images to sometimes I can't sell you who I am while I'm selling you Too Short. I gotta sell you Too Short. So you'd be surprised sometimes when a person just lets it down and you're like, I thought Ice Cube was this mean activist dude. And then you find out he's a grandfather who's, likes to tell jokes and laugh,
Yeah. I mean, to this point, to let you know how much I relate to you and music and how I don't generalize MCs by any stretch of imagination. I understand the layeredness of it. Ice Cube, NWA was I asked you your muse, was the muse of my first TED Talk I've ever did. It was about NWA, and it was about fuck the police, and it was about police brutality and how these things came to play. I give so much credit and to the power of hip hop in terms of language and how it can unlock social constructs. Because you guys are the messengers of our community. So for you to be able to be messengers of our community in such an effective way, that means we have to understand what's happening in our society, in our neighborhoods, our blocks, our communities, translate that over a beat and in a way that's about 4 minutes that we can all relate to in ever different capacities. That's genius in of itself before you even get to the person. And so this is my first time actually getting to meet you, Todd. Thank you for your vulnerability, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that I always have had something to say, and I think that I could have been a different kind of artist. I could have been an artist who just tapped in on social issues and just spoke about my community in a way that uplifted. And I felt like I could have just been like this silly guy who kind of, I'm not gonna say my man who just passed away, Shock G, Humpty Hump, was silly. He was a real musician, but his character Humpty Hump was always funny. I could have leaned on that angle and just been like the silly Too Short part, or I could have just been very dirty and raunchy, but I decided to be all of those things because I have songs like The Ghetto and Life is Too Short, and these songs like Money in the Ghetto, and these songs are like, getting it. These songs are about a good feeling, like making the listener feel good. And people come to me and go, the song you made, Getting It, I had to play it every day, every morning, just to get started for the day. And it got me through a tough period. But at the same time, on the same album, there's a song called I Never Let a Hoe Pimp Me. And then there's a pimp who comes to me and goes, I didn't wake up a day without playing that song before I pimped on these hoes. And it's the same project. And I feel like, that's what I do. I'm like, I really like step in a few different arenas. I could wake up and go to a fucking ball, like the upscale brunch where fucking everything's all proper. And by 7 hours later, I'm at the project smoking weed with the homies, talking shit on the same day. That's
real life. That's versatility, man, and that's power, and that's knowledge. That's ability to feel so comfortable in so many different rooms and not judging anyone, and also too being so comfortable in self. Like Too Short, I gotta stop this interview at some point because I am way over time now. But I would love to have you back on the Mike Muse show, man. I would love to even come on your show. I mean, I'm so outside of character right now. I never asked to be friends with a celebrity. I've never even asked to come on somebody's show. But I'm like, I want all the things. And we're gonna do all those fancy brunches when you come out here to New York City.
There's a conversation that people need to hear that gets you personally thinking on some, get your shit going. So we got that connection where, it's educational. And I feel like we really just scratched the surface on what an audience can listen to. So I say I come back on the show and I say we bring you on our show and we just keep it going.
Dude, let's do that. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you tune in because clearly this show is going to be off the chain. Too Short has a lot to say, obviously. He has a lot on his mind. Very layered and nuanced conversation. I can't wait for us.
Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern time. It also will replay throughout the week about another 5-6 times. And it'll also be available, on demand on the SiriusXM app. And basically, we talk.
And Rock the Bells radio.
Yeah, Rock the Bell. Shout out to LL Cool J. we're talking longevity in hip hop, and we're talking timeless in hip hop. So, people. Last thing I want to say is people make hit records. People know how to make hit records, but it's very, very hard to make timeless. Timeless music is a totally different thing than a hit record.
That's it. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's a mic drop right there.
Tune in if you want to learn more about it. Tune in. Don't stop rapping. That's what I do. All right, man.
That's it. All right, homies. Audience, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon. Peace. Too short.